You know what's fun, even though I'm absolutely horrendous at them? Predictions. You know what else is fun? The World Baseball Classic. For the first time since 2017, the best players in the world gather round to see who will win bragging rights as the best country there is at playing baseball. In this video, I give my predictions on how it all shakes out. Oh boy, wish me luck. If you are new to the channel, think about subscribing down below to help us get to 30K by opening day. Hit the like button, the bell button, the share button. Hit all the buttons! Okay, here we go. Let's get to it. I'm going to start off with the pools first. I'll go pool A, then B, then C, then D. You have two teams from each pool advance to the quarterfinals, and then I'll talk about the semifinals, and then we'll talk about the championship. Let's start off with pool A. Right off the bat, I'm going to cross off Chinese Taipei and Panama. I think they have some respectable players, but I think in the end, they just don't have enough talent to be able to make it out of Pool A. So I'm going to focus on the Netherlands, Cuba, and Italy. Let's talk about the Netherlands first. When you got a guy like Xander Bogaerts on your team, you're already off to a pretty good start. Xander Bogaerts, one of the best players in Major League Baseball, one of the best shortstops in Major League Baseball. Still crying myself to sleep every single night that he is not in a Red Sox uniform. I digress. But very nice to have Bogaerts on your team. That'll be a great bat in the lineup. And you have Jonathan Scope right next to him in the infield. Not really a great bat last year, but awesome defensively. I think him and Bogaerts up the middle will be awesome. Andrelton Simmons, not playing in the major leagues currently, but we all know the kind of glove that he has had in his career. I think that'll be a nice boost defensively for this team. And hey, just having a veteran on your team like that isn't too bad if you ask me. Didi Gregorius, speaking of veterans here, got cut by the Phillies last year. I think he's going to be pretty motivated coming into this thing. I think he has something to prove. He's only 33 years old. He still has something left in the tank. So I think he's going to look to put on a bit of a showcase for, you know, major league teams out there to show that he can still do something. So we'll have to wait and see how he ends up doing. On the pitching side of things, though, not as strong. They're better offensively, but pitching-wise, they have some question marks here. You have someone like a Jair Jurgens, where years ago he was good, but hasn't pitched in the majors now for a while. He has pitched elsewhere, but, you know, really, how much can he bring to the table? We'll just have to wait and see. You also have Sharon Martis, hasn't pitched for a while now. The last game he pitched in the major leagues was in 2013. He pitched a little bit in the majors, 26 games, 19 starts, not a whole lot of success. But, you know, he's someone here that you could, you know, who knows? Maybe he could end up providing something for this team. I don't know how much, though. Then you have someone like a Pedro Strop, where he has pitched in the majors recently. Didn't pitch last year, but he is coming into this motivated. He wants to try and get back into the major leagues. So I think this will be a good arm for them out of the bullpen. But overall, for the Netherlands, I do like them. I think their offense alone will be enough, to get them out of Pool A. So I think they will advance to the quarterfinals. So then it comes down to Cuba and Italy, which will be the other team coming out of Pool A. Let's talk about Cuba here. Now, starting off, you have Luis Robert, and you also have Yoan Moncada. With Cuba, in international play on the world stage, I believe they have not had major league players before. So for them to have these two guys playing for them in the World Baseball Classic, you're already off to a good start there. These are two guys where Luis Robert, he, to me, I still think can be a superstar in this game. He had some injuries last year, and this guy just has star potential all over him. I'm looking for a good season from him this coming year, and this could be, you know, a time for him where he is motivated coming into this thing. He wants to just get off to a good start this year. I think he could end up being a star in this tournament. And then you have Yoan Moncada, who's really looking for a bounce back year this year. Again, talking about motivation, this is a guy I think is going to be motivated coming into this year. So having these two guys with a chip on their shoulder, I think helps them out. However, the pitching side of things, kind of like the Netherlands, they're not as strong. You have someone like a Roenis Elias in the Chicago Cubs system in AAA. He pitched for the Mariners last year a little bit. He was okay. So that's someone that you have on your pitching staff that could be serviceable. And then you have someone like a Levon Moinello, who was pitching in Japan last year, had really good numbers in Japan. So this is someone that can come out of the bullpen for you. But for Cuba, I think they're a pretty solid team here. But the other team I want to look at is Italy. When it comes to Italy, The one thing I noticed right off the bat with them is they have 25 pitchers. That is a lot of pitching depth. 18 of these guys are currently in major league organizations. So I think that in a way, while they might not be as top heavy with pitching, the fact that they have so much depth, I think could really help them out in the long run. You have a lot of different options here. And the one guy that is not currently in a major league organization, you got Matt Harvey, the former Dark Knight. He was pitching with the Orioles in their minor league system last year. He got to AAA. He got knocked around a little bit over 10 starts, a 4.31 ERA. The FIP was a 6.71. He was with them over 28 starts in 2021. His numbers were pretty abysmal. But it's, Matt Harvey, sure, he's not the Dark Knight that we once knew, but this is a guy, going up against international players, guys that are in the minor leagues. I think Matt Harvey can have some success here. But for Italy to have this much pitching depth, I think that could end up being an advantage for them. So we'll have to wait and see how they end up playing it. But offensively, I really do like some of the pieces that they have. Starting off with the Italian Nightmare, Vinny Pasquantino. This guy was really good last year for the Royals over 72 games. I'm looking for a big year from him. I can't wait to see a full season from this guy. And then you got his teammate, Nicky Lopez. A couple of years ago, he was really good. Last year, not so much. I mean, he provided some decent defense. He was able to play, second, short, third. He offered that versatility. But Nicky Lopez, I'm looking for a bounce back year with the bat from him. But I think overall, he's a solid guy to have on your team. And he provides you a little speed as well. So I think that's going to be helpful. And then you got a guy like a David Fletcher, a guy that's been in the league now for a few years. I think this is just a solid player to have on your team. And then to me, I think one of the biggest X factors in this entire tournament could be Sal Frelick. I really like Sal Frelick, one of my favorite prospects right now. In AAA last year, he was so good over 46 games. And AA, he was even better in AAA last year than he was in AA. He's going to give you a lot of contact, a lot of speed, a lot of on-base ability. I think Sal Frelick could be a game changer in this entire thing. So overall, in Pool A, I like the Netherlands winning Pool A. I think, they've been here before. They're a team that in the last World Baseball Classic, they had a lot of success. So I think in the end, they're going to win this pool. And for the runner-up, I'm going to go Italy. I think Italy, with the pitching depth that they have and with some solid players that they have in the offense, I think that could end up being an advantage for them, how much depth that they have. I think they're going to pull off. I think a lot of people might see that as an upset. I think a lot of people are going to go Netherlands and Cuba here. But to me, I think Italy could be a fun team in this tournament. So I'm going to go Netherlands as the winner. I'm going to go Italy with the upset as the runner-up. On to Pool B, we have Japan, Korea, Australia, China, and the Czech Republic. Right off the bat here, I'm just going to go with Japan and Korea to get out of Pool B. I just don't think there's enough talent with Australia, with China, with the Czech Republic. I think this is going to be very easy for Japan and Korea to get out of this. I mean, what else is there to say? Japan is absolutely loaded, easily one of the best teams in this entire thing. Shohei Ohtani, Yu Darvish, you got Roki Sasaki, you got Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I mean, come on, this team is absolutely stacked when it comes to the pitching. And then with the offense, when you just got guys that can just hit for power, get on base, hit for average, like Masataka Yoshida, very good at getting on base. Don't forget about Lars Nootbaar. How could I forget about him? A lot of success last year with the St. Louis Cardinals. Munetaka Murakami had a lot of success last year in Japan. I mean, there's just so much to like about this team. And as for Korea, I think Korea is a pretty underrated team this year. Man, I will never forget the KBO from a couple of years ago. When we had no baseball, we had the KBO, or we had no Major League Baseball. We had the KBO at least. So Ha-Sung Kim had some success last year, filling in for Fernando Tatis Jr. at shortstop. Solid player for them to have. Tommy Edman was really good last year for the Cardinals. A lot of versatility. I think he's going to be a very key piece for this Korean team. And then if we take a look at some of the guys from the KBO, Jung-Hoo Lee, the MVP last year, he was really solid. We got former major leaguer Byung-Ho Park, still hitting for a lot of power over there in the KBO. And then on the pitching side of things, you got Kwang-Hyun Kim, who pitched for the Cardinals recently. He's had success. I think he's going to have himself a good tournament. And then you got someone like a Hyun-Jung Yang who pitched for the Rangers a few years ago. I think this Korean team, I think they are being slept on a little bit. But for me, this is easy. Japan and Korea will move on to the quarterfinals. Oh, and just to make it clear, Japan will easily win Pool B and Korea will be the runner-up. On to Pool C, we have USA, Mexico, Colombia, Canada, and Great Britain. Right off the bat, as much as it pains me to say, I'm going to take out Great Britain. They got a couple of fun players on here. Harry Ford, one of the top prospects in the game. You got Trace Thompson, who had a fun year for the Dodgers last year. But in the end, I just don't think Great Britain is going to have enough. Hey, I hope I'm wrong. I hope they go on a Cinderella run. That's my homeland. I was born there. That would be awesome if they can go on some kind of a run. That'd be crazy. I just don't think it's going to happen. So we have Canada, Colombia, Mexico, and USA. Winning this group, I think, will be USA rather easily. I mean, if we take a look at this roster is just completely insane. Let's take a look at the pitching. They, I think, personally, are more talented in the bullpen than they are with the starting pitching. The starting pitching, though, is pretty solid if you ask me. Lance Lynn, Adam Wainwright, Miles Michaelis, Brady Singer. Who else we got? We got Kyle Freeland in here as well. Nick Martinez could even start a game or two or whatever. But the bullpen, to me, this bullpen is nuts because you got legit closers in this bullpen. You got Devin Williams, you got Daniel Bard, David Bednar, Jason Adam was really good last year. Brooks Raley, Ryan Presley. I mean, my goodness, this is just an insane bullpen. I'm excited to see what these guys can do. But offensively, this team is a juggernaut, man. When we're looking, at a guy like Mike Trout, one of the best players in the entire universe, you're off to a pretty good start, if you ask me. You got Mike Trout and Mookie Betts in the same outfield. That is just stupid, if you ask me. Kyle Schwarber bringing a ton of power. Mullins and Tucker bringing some solid play as well. I mean, look at the infield. Are you kidding me? You got the MVP from last year, Paul Goldschmidt. Nolan Arenado was in those talks as well for MVP. Pete Alonso bringing a ton of power. Trey Turner, one of the best shortstops in the game. Jeff McNeil, a breakout season last year. Bobby Witt Jr., one of the former top rookies coming up not too long ago. You got JT Realmuto, one of the top catchers in the game. I think Team USA easily wins this pool. So the runners, the runner-up, it's going to come down to Mexico, Colombia, and Canada. I will cross off Colombia. They do have some solid pieces here. You have someone like a Jose Quintana leading the way. Someone like a Julio Teheran hasn't really fully found his way over the last few years. Looking to see if maybe he can revitalize his career with the Padres. They do have some other fun players here. Jorge Alfaro has a good arm. He's shown some power in the past. I'm excited to see what he can do for the Red Sox this year, if he can get some playing time. A solid player like a Gio Urshela, going to be on the Angels this year. I think Gio Urshela is one of the more solid, more underrated players in the game. You got someone like a Harold Ramirez. You got some decent players on this team. I just don't think it's going to be enough against some of these other squads. And another squad here is Canada. Now, Canada, they have some good players on this team, starting with Freddie Freeman, one of the best players in all of Major League Baseball. You got a couple other decent guys here, like Otto Lopez in the Blue Jays system last year was pretty solid. Abraham Toro, I still think hasn't fully found his way. I think Abraham Toro can still be a decent player. You got Tyler O'Neill, who had a bad season last year, but 2 years ago was really good. You got someone like Owen Casey in the Cubs system as well. I think there's some decent bats here. Well, Freddie Freeman is very good, but overall, I think Canada is okay, overall offensively. I think they're pretty good. On the pitching side of things, though, to me, they are a little thin. Nick Pivetta was on this squad, but he had to pull out. And so now they're left with Cal Quantrill as really like their ace, basically. And so when it comes to the starting pitching, they are a little thin. You got a guy like Matt Brash out of the bullpen. This guy's electric out of the bullpen. I would love to have him out of my bullpen, just saying. But they are a little thin, if you ask me, but they do have talent on this team. But Mexico, if we're taking a look at Mexico here, man, they got some good players on this squad. Pitching wise, you got Julio Urias, one of the better pitchers in the game. You got Taijuan Walker, you got Jose Urquidy, you got Patrick Sandoval. That's a pretty good rotation, if you ask me. I mean, if you had that as a major league rotation, that's pretty solid. And you got Oliver Perez making a bit of a comeback here. Giovanni Gallegos coming out of the bullpen. I think that's going to be a pretty good option. Offensively, You got some good options here as well. Outfielders is where you see more of the names. You got Randy Rosarina, Alex Verdugo, Jarren Duran, and Alek Thomas. Randy Rosarina, I think he's going to have himself a good year with the Rays. I feel like he hasn't fully found his stride yet. I still think there's even more in the tank with a Randy Rosarina. Alex Verdugo, I think he needs to take a step forward, but I could see him having a fun time in this tournament. This kind of seems like something he would just really enjoy going to. Teammate Jarren Duran, bummer of a year last year, but he's reworked his swing in the offseason. He's more quicker to the ball now. So I'm expecting Jarren Duran to have some better numbers this year. I think he could end up having himself a good showcase in this tournament. Alek Thomas, one of the better young players in the game, top prospect that came up last year. You got some other players as well. Rowdy Tellez had some success last year. Luis Urias, both of those guys had success for the Brewers last year. Joey Meneses had a fun year for the Nationals. Aranda, Paredes, they had some success for the Rays last year. I think it's just a pretty solid team overall with Team Mexico. Overall, I'm going to have Team USA winning Pool C, and I'm going to have Mexico as the runner-up. So I have those two teams advancing to the quarterfinals. And last but not least, we have Pool D. We have Puerto Rico, Venezuela, the Dominican Republic, Israel, and Nicaragua. Right off the bat, I'm going to knock out Israel and Nicaragua. Israel has a couple of good players here. Nicaragua as well. I just think in the end, those two teams, they're just nowhere near as talented as Puerto Rico, Venezuela, and the Dominican Republic. So the Dominican Republic, I think, easily win this group. I think a lot of people would agree with that. This is honestly like a modern-day murderer's row. I mean, look at the bats in this lineup. I mean, you got Juan Soto, you got Julio Rodriguez and Teoscar Hernandez. You even got Eloy Jimenez as basically your fourth best outfielder out there, and that is just ridiculous. And you look at the infield. You got Manny Machado, MVP finalist from last year. You got Wander Franco, who I think is going to eventually be one of the best shortstops in the game. You got Rafael Devers, who had just had a great season last year, just got himself a fat contract in the offseason. Jeremy Pena winning a World Series MVP. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will not be on this team. He actually pulled out recently. You even got Willy Adames on this team, man. I mean, that is just crazy. It's just insane. And then you go to the pitching. You got a lot of pitching. You got a lot of depth on this team, too. 19 pitchers that you're going to be carrying. When you're looking at the starting pitching, I'm seeing Sandy Alcantara. I'm seeing Roansy Contreras. I'm seeing Christian Javier. I mean, come on. I mean, it's like you got some really good pitching here. But you got some good bullpen arms, too. Brian Abreu. You got Camille Duvall. I mean, come on. Hector Neris is in here. Rafael Montero. You got even Gregory Soto from the left side. This team is absolutely stacked. They are going to win this group by a mile. And then we got Venezuela and we got Puerto Rico. I'm going to take a look at Puerto Rico first. Puerto Rico, to me, this is a good team. I like Puerto Rico. You got Marcus Stroman, Jose Barrios at the top of that rotation. And then you got some guys to the bullpen. Edwin Diaz, best closer in the entire freaking universe right now. And you got a couple other guys. Jorge Lopez was good last year. Emilio Pagan wasn't amazing last year. But this is a guy that you could turn to when we're taking a look at the catchers. You got Christian Vasquez and Martín Maldonado. They're pairing back up in the World Baseball Classic. Gotta love it, coming off of a World Series. And then, infielders, we got a good group of guys here. We got Kike Hernandez from my Red Sox. Gotta love him. Javier Baez, Francisco Lindor. Those two guys up the middle defensively, that's going to be great. Javier Baez did not have a great season last year, but he is definitely going to be able to give you something with the glove, and he's always a threat to hit for power. Francisco Lindor was awesome last year, so I like those two up the middle. Outfielders, they are a little thin, I would say. Eddie Rosario, NLCS MVP from a couple of years ago. But overall, I do like Puerto Rico. Venezuela, I really like Venezuela as well. I think these two teams are pretty close. When it comes to the offense, a lot of good bats here. Jose Altuve had a good season last year. Everyone loves to hate Jose Altuve. I don't think they realize how good he actually was last year. You got some guys that can hit for power here. Eugenio Suarez, Gleyber Torres hit for a bit of power last year. A good bounce back season from him. You even got Miguel Cabrera. He's not the Miguel Cabrera of old, but hey, not too bad to have Miguel Cabrera on your squad. You got Luis Ariz, who can hit for a lot of contact. Eduardo Escobar is pretty solid, in my opinion. In the outfield, Ronald Acuna Jr., superstar, had himself a bit of a down season last year. compared to his usual numbers, but he was coming back from an ACL tear. I think Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to have a massive year in 2023, and you got some power here as well with Anthony Santander. David Peralta is a solid player to have. Says free agent, but he's with the Dodgers now. Overall, and Andres Gimenez, man, this guy, breakout season for him last year. Good with the bat, great defensively. I really like this Venezuela team. So overall, I have the Dominican Republic easily winning this group, and I'm actually going to go with Venezuela as the runner-up. Puerto Rico, that's tough, man. This is a really tough group. I think you can argue this is the toughest group in the entire tournament. But to me, I think Venezuela, they just edge out Puerto Rico when it comes to just overall talent. I think they have more pitching. I think they have plenty of bats. So in the end, I think the Dominican Republic, I think they win this group, and Venezuela, they'll be the runners-up. In the first quarterfinal matchup, I have Korea versus the Netherlands. While I do like Netherlands, and I think they have a good player in Xander Bogaerts, along with some veterans in Angel Simmons and Didi Gregorius, I think Korea has the more complete team with some solid major leaguers like Tommy Edman and Ha-Seong Kim. And they got some good KBO players as well, like Jung-Hoo Lee, Byung-Ho Park, Jung Choi, and some decent pitching, including Kwang-Yeon Kim and Hyun-Jong Yang, who produce a lot more ground balls for the defense. I think Korea takes care of business and they move on to the semifinals. Next up, I have Italy versus Japan. While I do think Italy has some fun players like Vinny Pasquantino and a veteran pitcher in Matt Harvey, Japan will simply just be too much with pitchers like Shohei Ohtani, Yu Darvish, Roki Sasaki, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, along with some very good bats like Ohtani, Munetaka Murakami, and Masataka Yoshida. Japan moves on to their 5th straight semifinals. For the next quarterfinal matchup, I have Mexico versus the Dominican Republic. I really like this Mexico team, which includes some good pitching like Julio Urias, some good bats like Randy Arozarena, and some promising young players like Alek Thomas. But the Dominican Republic is simply just too talented for Mexico, who have a ridiculous offense, and their power arms will be able to get past those Mexico bats without much issue. Dominican Republic advances to the semifinals. Last but not least, I have USA versus Venezuela in an awesome matchup. Both teams have very good offenses and both possess good arms. In the end, though, I think Venezuela, who I think has a slight edge in starting pitching, will be able to edge out the United States in an extremely tight matchup. While USA does have the better bullpen, I think Venezuela, who boasts more quality starting pitchers, will be able to outlast the United States offense. Venezuela moves on to their first semifinals. In the first semifinal matchup, I have Korea versus the Dominican Republic. Like I said, Korea has a good squad with guys like Tommy Edman and Ha-Seong Kim from the major leagues. You got a couple of good hitters from the KBO and a couple of good pitchers as well. But in the end, I think the Dominican Republic is just too strong. When you have an offense with some incredible bats like Juan Soto, Manny Machado, Rafael Devers, and some power arms in the rotation like Sandy Alcantara, I think the Dominican Republic is just going to be too much for Korea, and they move on to the finals. In the other semifinal matchup, I have Venezuela versus Japan. Venezuela is extremely good with a strong lineup with hitters like Ronald Acuna Jr. and Jose Altuve, and some very good starting pitching with the likes of Pablo Lopez and Eduardo Rodriguez. However, I think Japan, with the likes of Shohei Ohtani, Yu Darvish, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, and some good bats like Ohtani, Murakami, Yoshida, I think they're going to be too much for Venezuela, and they move on to the finals to face the Dominican Republic. In the finals, I have a heavyweight matchup between Japan and the Dominican Republic. Both of these teams are extremely talented. While the Dominican Republic possesses a better overall offense, Japan does have enough bats to keep pace with the Dominican Republic's power pitching. As for the pitching, I think Japan's starting pitching will be able to match up with the Dominican Republic, and they will be able to score enough runs thanks to some quality hitters in their lineup. In the end, I have Japan defeating the Dominican Republic and winning their 3rd World Baseball Classic. So those are my predictions. Tell me your thoughts down below. Tell me your predictions down below. On the way out, if you can, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, share the content. But that's all I have for right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.